welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we are unpacking something absolutely fascinating. We managed to get our hands on an exclusive May 2026 strategic roadmap for Anthropic, the AI safety and research powerhouse. But what makes this really special is that this roadmap wasn't prepared by just anyone. It was actually crafted by Disruptivity, an elite AI research and management consulting firm. So throughout this explainer, we're going to look through Disruptivity's lens to see exactly how Anthropic might strategize into the future, and honestly, more importantly, what this massive technological shift means for the entire enterprise landscape. All right, let's dive straight into this. $965 billion. Just let that sink in for a second. That is Anthropic's private valuation as of May 2026. We're looking at a company right on the verge of a $1 trillion market cap. This instantly tells us just how immense the stakes are in the AI landscape right now. I mean, this is a highly capital-intensive, winner-take-most market, and Anthropic has firmly established itself in this incredibly competitive triopoly right alongside OpenAI and Google. To unpack how they got here, Disruptivity's executive briefing covers 5 key areas: the AI market inflection, the rise of agentic AI, future enterprise scenarios, Anthropic's strategic pivot, and finally, how you can actually simulate your own business future.
Kicking things off with Section 1, the AI market inflection, moving from the lab to the enterprise stack.
We are quite literally at a historic turning point here. The market has rapidly matured way beyond those early, simple pilot programs and into full-scale operational deployment. Now, for a while, the prevailing strategy was all about monolithic cloud models, basically using one giant, incredibly expensive frontier model to do absolutely everything. But Disruptivity notes we are actively moving toward a model as a component architecture. What does that mean? It means enterprises are starting to use many smaller, cheaper, and highly specialized models for specific jobs. By using clever techniques like distillation, where a massive model essentially teaches a smaller one, companies can deploy AI locally or right in their own data centers. This slashes inference costs, completely ensures data privacy, and drops latency down to almost zero. It is a total paradigm shift.
So where exactly does Anthropic sit in this shifting landscape? Well, they are dominating. Commanding roughly 40% of all enterprise large language model usage, they are riding this explosive trajectory toward a $26 billion revenue target by 2026. And because their go-to-market strategy has deliberately focused on demanding highly regulated sectors, think financial services and healthcare, they are perfectly positioned to capitalize on this newfound enterprise maturity.
Which brings us to Section 2, the rise of agentic AI in the new digital workforce.
Okay, this is where things get a little sci-fi, but I promise you it is happening right now in corporate software. We're moving away from simple generative text, like, asking a chatbot to write a quick email, to complex autonomous execution. Disruptivity defines the agentic enterprise as a totally new operating model where autonomous AI agents actually perform the majority of routine digital work. Just think about that for a second. Traditional software just sits there and waits for you to click a button. Even generative AI waits for you to type a prompt. But an agentic system? It actively plans a sequence of actions, it navigates digital tools like web browsers and databases, and it even self-corrects to achieve a complex, multi-step goal entirely on its own.
This completely changes the everyday role of the employee. We are shifting from a human-in-the-loop paradigm, where a person is actively clicking, typing, and manually stitching together workflows across 10 different apps, to a human-on-the-loop paradigm. In this new reality, humans are effectively getting a massive promotion to middle management. You are now acting as a supervisor to a digital workforce. You set the high-level goal, and the software executes the whole shebang.
And here's the kicker. Because the nature of the work itself changes, the business model of software absolutely must change too. This is a massive market disruption. The traditional software as a service business model relies on selling tools on a per-seat basis, right? You buy a license for every single human employee. But when you transition to selling work, which is an outcome-based model where one human manager might be supervising 50 AI agents, that old per-seat SaaS model completely collapses. You aren't buying a tool for a worker anymore. You are literally buying the worker. Moving right along to Section 3, future enterprise scenarios. Let's visualize the shift in the market. Disruptivity modeled out several very distinct futures for Anthropic, starting with a scenario defined by commoditized LLMs and the rise of regulated AI utilities. In this specific future, the foundational AI models themselves just become basic commodities. Think of them kind of like electricity. Their raw underlying intelligence is practically indistinguishable from one another. So how on earth do you stand out?
while the differentiation shifts entirely away from smarts and over to safety, provenance, and insurance. For these heavily regulated enterprises, buying AI becomes less about getting the smartest model on the market and way more about buying a certified, highly regulated utility that guarantees they won't get sued.
The second modeled scenario explores enterprise agentic AI and autonomous workflow orchestration. Here, those old human-stitched workflows in IT operations, customer service, and back-office administration, they are completely replaced by autonomous digital workers. And guys, this isn't just a fancy feature upgrade to existing software. It is a fundamental, ground-up rewriting of corporate cost structures, all driven by massive investments in multi-agent orchestration frameworks.
All right, Section 4, Anthropic's strategic pivot using governance as a moat. So if models become commoditized and agents completely take over the workflows, how does a company like Anthropic actually survive and maintain a near trillion-dollar valuation? Well, Disruptivity outlines their core strategic mission to solve this exact problem, and it's this: establish the global standard for algorithmic accountability and governance. Their master plan here is to become the absolute, undisputed ISO standard of autonomous AI. They want to create a world where literally no enterprise can deploy a mission-critical AI agent without Anthropic's safety verification layer stamped right on it.
Here's how that strategy actually breaks down step by step. First, they aggressively move away from just selling general-purpose API models. Second, they form massive, deeply integrated partnerships with elite global consultancies. We're talking the PwCs and Deloittes of the world. And third, they use those consulting armies to drive standardization, creating an incredibly sticky institutional lock-in. Basically, Anthropic transitions from simply participating in the AI market to actually being the ultimate arbiter of the market's safety rules. Because once an enterprise is certified safe by Anthropic, the immense risk of losing that certification totally outweighs the few pennies they might save by switching to a cheaper, uncertified competitor. It's honestly a brilliant pivot.
But of course, no strategy in the real world is without massive risk. And Disruptivity impartially lays out some pretty serious existential threats facing Anthropic right now. They have a deep, completely foundational dependence on hyperscalers, namely AWS and Google Cloud. I mean, we're talking about an estimated $80 billion projected just for compute infrastructure through 2029. Anthropic has to flawlessly execute this incredibly ambitious roadmap while remaining entirely reliant on revenue-sharing agreements and navigating the intensely complex power dynamics of the very tech giants they are technically competing against. It is a high-wire act of epic proportions.
And finally, Section 5, simulate your business future. We've spent this entire explainer looking at Anthropic's roadmap, but I want to turn this around and pose a direct question to you. Is your business actually ready for agentic AI? Seriously, if the very nature of software is shifting right now, from a tool you use to an autonomous agent that does the work for you, what does that actually do to your daily operations? What happens to your cost structure or your long-term competitive edge?
Well, this is exactly where the authors of this report come in. You see, Disruptivity doesn't just analyze big tech, they provide elite management consulting as a service for businesses that are navigating this exact tricky transition. They help organizations build predictive, agentic simulations specific to their industry, allowing them to rigorously pressure test their long-term corporate strategy. If you want to survive the historic shift from monolithic models to these new autonomous ecosystems, you absolutely need a strategy that is as bulletproof as the ones being drafted out in Silicon Valley.
I'll leave you with this one final thought. The future of work is undeniably autonomous. The technology isn't years away, it is already here. So the only real question left for your organization is this: are you leading the transition, or are you just going to end up supervising it? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I highly encourage you to explore how Disruptivity's strategic capabilities can prepare your business for the agentic era.